Purpose of the meeting today is to basically just to get information that TVA had in their report and also TVPPA in their findings in their report.
One concern we have that we continue to reiterate since the storm recovery report, which I will get to, is the utility has been without a qualified general manager or leader of the utility department for over a year. It's very concerning that that position is vacant. Typically, TVA would be working with the general manager of a utility to address concerns as we have with Holly Springs. Holly Springs, however, even with that, and the time period starts between 2012 to 19, has had a long-standing challenge of cyclical in nature, if you will, challenges to stay in regulatory compliance with our wholesale power contract. The current financial conditions raise serious concerns about the electric department's ability to continue to operate and maintain the system on a self-supporting and financially sound basis. One of our big concerns has been with the lack of accurate financial information being provided to us, which is required by the wholesale power contract to TVA. They're delinquent on providing external audit reports. Where monthly reports are provided, it is typical that it's inaccurate or incorrect information. Based on all of this and what we have been able to review and understand from limited information on the financial side of the utility, we are really concerned that they are in a position to not be able to cover their expenses for the long run. And so we're really
TVA doesn't look at operational issues. That falls under a general concept that we call local control. And I want to emphasize the fact that I have 153 members, and only one is in this situation.
Next, we'll have recognize Mr. Tom Suggs. He's former CEO of Middle Tennessee Electric, and the way I understand you were lead on the TVPPA report that we have in front of us.
Yes, sir. That
Thank
is
you.
correct.
You're recognized.
And this is not an exhaustive list that I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through it into a lot of detail. It's concerning to me as an engineer. I think it will be concerning to you as a body, everybody in this room. We've talked a lot about the reliability aspect of this. There's a safety component of this that is also critical. It's at a critical level, I think. It causes me great concern for the employees there. So one of the first polls I saw was this one. This is right outside of a substation, the South Holly Springs substation. Vegetation is obvious. There's 2 circuits on this pole. There's also, it's hard to see, but down toward the middle there, you'll see a little bit of orange. There is a device in there that they used a temporary jumper to repair something a year, 2 years ago, they told me. It's supposed to be a temporary repair. That thing, I told them when I went in, I said, that's going to cause y'all problems. Little did I know that before I left, the next week, we had, there we go, they had an outage there. And it took 4 hours. It was a beautiful, clear day. It took 4 hours. The office was affected. The Holly Springs Utility office was affected. I was in the office working with some of the ladies inside, and the power goes out. No generator at the office, so they could not get the office back up and running. The repair that they made was just to replace that jumper. They didn't. The vegetation is still there. I mean, that's the mindset is day to day, day to day, day to day. Do what you can. So that was interesting to me. That one of the first things I saw actually caused an outage. There was an outage every day that I was there, and there was not a cloud any of the days I was there. They were working outages every day.
How many days were you there?
Sir?
How many days were you there?
I was there for about 7 days, and I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning with the crews when they got to work, and I went out with them to different places, and so I was with them on those days. This one was interesting to me because it was in the city, and this is actually a switch pole that you would use to isolate during outages. The switches are covered. I mean, there's no way to access that for it to perform its intended function. Again, just general vegetation-related issues everywhere I went. And I'll say this, and I may repeat it later, but I never got off of a main highway. Highway 178, 4, 7. I never had to turn down a side road to find something. I actually had employees say, we want you to go to a certain place we're going to take you that's really bad. We never could get around to going because the days we were supposed to go, they had outages, they had to work. I don't know how it's staying on at all. I'll be honest with you. This one's got a transformer on it. This vegetation is in direct contact with energized conductors. Not only you have vegetation, you'll get critters, you know, that crawl up in this stuff. There's just so many opportunities for bad things to happen here. That one, almost like a monument to kudzu. Another one with transformer on it. So the next 2 or 3 here, you'll notice the poles look a little different. This is sub-transmission. This is 46 kV. And Holly Springs owns some, and I'm going to talk about that in some detail in a little bit. Even the 46 kV is starting to see vegetation. You can't really tell so much, or I can't from this screen. It looks better on the bigger screen, but that wire disappears into the trees at the 46,000 volts. It is what it looks like. You'll notice that transformer, and you'll notice that structure to the left of the transformer, and you can see some stuff laying on the ground there. What we have here is a situation where over 5 years ago, there was an explosion. And this transformer was damaged. It's still out of service. One of the 2 transformers that were in that station is still out of service.
How many years?
Over 5.
What's the availability of that transformer?
No idea. Don't know what the condition is. Don't know if it was ever tested. It certainly cannot be put back in service right now. Yeah. Even if the transformer were, the structure would have to be rebuilt. And yeah, I don't know. They have one other transformer in that station that is, serving the entire load, but it's all on that one transformer now. Because I'm going to speak to all of this in detail. I just want to provide some visuals to get you thinking. There's not supposed to be vegetation in a substation, okay? Right. This was the South Holly Springs substation, I believe. This is a shared substation between TVA and Holly Springs. So standing where I'm standing right there, I'm looking into the Holly Springs part of this substation. I then turned 180 degrees and took a picture from that same location into the TVA. You see the difference. I'll elaborate on this some more too, but I wanted to show it. There's 4 transformers in this station that are old TVA substation transformers. I couldn't determine the age from the nameplate. Looking at them, probably 60 years old. And I noticed these labels on the gauges where you monitor the winding temperature and the oil temperature and the things that you need to keep up with. This was one of the other transformers. It's the same way. Here's what it says. So no idea of the condition, the loading, any of that. And I'll speak more to that in a moment also. Again, just wanting to kind of show the visuals.
Obviously, this is a safety concern at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all kind of concerns. Reliability, safety. Yes, sir. In some of the stations outside of the city, the vegetation is even worse. This is actually inside the fence. That's energized back there at the back. That's not good. This to me spoke volumes. This is the maintenance log for the voltage regulators in the station. So I go in, I'm going to check their maintenance logs. Every one I check will look like that. Okay? You see where you step up to go into the control building right outside the door. When I got there, whoever had gone in there last had to cut their way in. And that thing was an inch and a half or whatever in diameter. When I walked into that substation building, I heard an alarm going. I tracked down the alarm, and it was a low nitrogen alarm on one of the transformers. So I go out in the field, and there actually was low nitrogen. They didn't know, they hadn't been there. That's not a good situation.
So just so we know, what's the result of a low nitrogen situation?
You get moisture in the transformer, and it can cause problems. I actually found a worse one than that. The substation where the transformer had failed, you were asking about the availability. The other transformer, when I went in, the main protective device, the circuit switcher, relies on SF6 gas to operate. Didn't have any. So if it had tried to operate, you would have lost the other. You'd have lost the other station, half the station. I told them, they went in there, they put some in it. It was empty, and I shouldn't be finding those things, right? So that's two instances. One could have been catastrophic. The other would have been a longer-term issue, but it just speaks to the fact that nobody goes in there, especially if you have to cut your way in. This is their pole yard. This is where they are every day when they're getting transformers to go out. The ones in the back are almost completely covered. This is an example of where they store their equipment. Their gloves laying on the ground. No protectors. Very, very, very concerning. Their personal protective equipment program is non-existent. We're going to talk about that. So starting with the management side of things there, based on my observations, there is not a qualified person, either at the city or in the utility department, to hold that manager's position. They just don't exist there right now. And again, they're operating day to day. There's no long-term vision or planning or anything like that, going on. So, and I want to speak to the employees right quick, because I've said a lot here and I've shown some pictures and it could reflect poorly on them. Those guys were fantastic. They're showing me things. They were honest. They were saying, please tell our story. Some would say, a couple even went so far as to say, we are embarrassed by the level of service that we're providing. There is zero engineering expertise there from an electrical engineering standpoint. I think you can really look at this. This is how I've framed it in my mind. We're at the point of trying to start an electric utility from scratch. They are one event away in several cases from really, catastrophic from the standpoint of where I mentioned the gas not being in the circuit switcher. That would have been a catastrophic thing if a bird had landed on the bus or something during that time.
So when you say catastrophic, what would happen?
Blow up. Their new service requests, they have a significant backlog. It took him 2 years basically to get service. The more concerning thing that I heard was that they actually get to the point where people are ready to move into the houses, and it's a month, 2 months, 3 months, and they will call the department and say, we're about to lose our financing. And that's when some of them will get moved to the front of the line. When they get to the point where they can't move in and the banks are fixing to pull out from under them, that's when they can get service. Anything like that. So they really don't know what condition the system's in. Where are the weak parts? If we did lose and have to refeed from a different direction, what's the capability of the substation transformer to carry that load? No, nobody knows. And so it would just be try and hope. Try and hope.
But to say, hey, this is dire, the people are suffering. People, literally, they testified to us that one of the undertakers said, when our power goes off, we can't even maintain the dignity of those that are deceased. We don't think about that in other parts of the state. We don't think about that, and it's a shame, Representative Faulkner and Commissioner Stamps and Commissioner Carr, that's happening in Mississippi, that we have those concerns. That if you're on a medical machine that is maintaining your life, you have to be in fear whether the power is going to be on tomorrow in a broad daylight, not an ice storm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very disheartening. I'm disappointed because elections do have consequences. But everybody elected, no matter if you're white or black, people have paid a price to get you the ability to be able to be elected, and you should do your daggum job.
Yeah.
I mean, you should hold that to a level of seriousness. And when it comes to utilities, these are people's lives. People are going to die without power. Literally, people will die. People are out there on oxygen machines and all kinds of stuff out there. And if they can't have reliable power, I mean, we're putting people in poverty.
They're my neighbors. I live in Gulfport, Mississippi. I'm 7 or 8 hours from them, but they're my neighbors, and I'm concerned about them. And I think every person in this room is concerned about them. And, you know, Commissioner Stamps mentioned about the elderly. Part of my career, I worked in the healthcare facilities, and I've seen what happens when a generator doesn't function correctly. The people that are in the hospitals or nursing homes or daycares, it concerns me. Also, it concerns me on the water side. When you lose pressure and it gets below 20 PSI, you can have infiltration into that water line. It's something we don't think about when we lose power. Power is very important. Communication is very important. To have a plan is very important. And they're right, it's going to take some time. We've got to start somewhere.
To say, hey, this is an issue and we have to join together to fix it, because the people in that district deserve better.